Our Prime Minister has concluded his 2-day visit to China, where he was attending the SCO Summit of 2025. And today we will break down what SCO is, what was different about this year's summit, and why is it important for our examination. Hello and welcome to Drishti IAS. My name is Saloni Nankyolier. Let's get started. So our Prime Minister was on a 2-day visit to Tianjin, where he was attending the SCO Summit for this year. And this year's SCO Summit was particularly important because of a couple of reasons. First and foremost, this was the largest gathering, the largest SCO gathering so far, with close to 20 plus heads of states coming and attending the meeting. So there was a huge representation. Secondly, for the first time, there was a proposal for the creation of an SCO Development Bank. And this proposal came in from China. Now, with this proposal, SCO wishes to enter the domain of economic cooperation. It does not just want to restrict itself to being a regional stability provider or a regional security provider. It wishes to enter the domain of economic cooperation. Hence, the proposal for the creation of an SCO Development Bank. Thirdly, for the first time, the Pahalgam terror attacks were formally condemned in the joint declaration in the Tianjin Declaration. So India's stance on counter-terrorism, on anti-terrorism, it was recognized, and for the first time, Pahalgam terror attacks were formally condemned in the joint declaration. And lastly, the heads of the states, everybody in the organization, they basically felt the need to have a multipolar global democratic setup so that the domination of one country or a couple of Western countries can be counterbalanced. The world needs to have a multipolar democratic setup. So then there were also some important bilateral meetings that happened, like with Russia, with China, with Myanmar. We will talk about them also in the upcoming slides. But before we do that, let us start with the basics of SCO. So the story began in 1996, where the predecessor of SCO, that is Shanghai 5, was formed. Now this was formed in the aftermath of the Soviet Union disintegration of 1991, and the countries were China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. And they basically came together to provide stability and security in the Central Asian region. But then as situation worsened, time went by, there was a need that was felt to have a more formal and institutional setup. And that is when in 2001, SCO was formed in Shanghai. Now, SCO, it has two permanent bodies. First is the Secretariat, which has a headquarter in Beijing. And second is RATS, Regional Anti-Terrorism Structure, which has a headquarter in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. And this basically deals with the three evils of terrorism, extremism, and separatism. So this SCO basically was formed to provide stability and security in the Central Asian region. So it has a secretariat and then it has RATS. Right now there are 10 member countries. And a trick to remember that is put BRIC with a double I and a double K. So you have Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Belarus, Russia, India, Iran, China, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. So these are the 10 member countries of SCO at the moment. Now if we talk about the geographical representation and the population representation, SCO is the largest regional cooperation because it has a representation of 60% of Eurasian landmass and 40% of the world's population. So this means it's the largest regional cooperation, and anything that happens in this summit, the declaration, the decisions that are taken in this summit, they matter. So there were a lot of important bilateral meetings that happened this year, like India and China, where both the countries that realized that they need to work as partners and not rivals. Because India and China, they've had a bittersweet relationship Bitter because we keep on seeing these standoffs, these border disputes, and strategic autonomy issues where the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor or China's Belt and Road Initiative, they undermine India's sovereignty. So it's a bitter relationship that wise, but also sweet and collaborative because of the extensive trade that we have with China. China is one of the largest trading partners for India. Then we also have a shared cultural heritage with China, Buddhism and the Silk Route and everything. So we have ancient civilizational ties also with China. So we have a bittersweet relationship with China, and right now also the need was felt that both the countries, they need to work together, they need to work collaboratively and establish themselves as regional leaders and not rivals. So a term came in which was the dragon elephant diplomacy. Dragon for China and elephant for India. So this term you should keep in mind, that dragon elephant diplomacy is a term that is used for India-China bilateral relations. Next is the meeting that we had with Myanmar. With the Prime Minister, he met with the General of Myanmar, and this was in line with India's neighborhood first and Act East policy. We have a couple of important projects with Myanmar like the Kaladan multimodal transit transport project. So for this project also to be a success, we need to have stability and security in the region of Myanmar, peace and prosperity in Myanmar. And for that only, we also advocated for a fair, inclusive election in Myanmar while supporting a Myanmar-led peace process. So this is what we discussed in the bilateral meeting of India and Myanmar. Then India, Russia also had some meetings, and again Russia has been one of the strongest allies and the closest allies of India. So in that direction also we had some more meetings with Russia. So these couple of meetings, they happened in SCO summit. Now let us see India's stance on terrorism, because this was something that India again talked about. Basically on every international forum, India does bring out his concern on terrorism and acts as an anti-terrorist nation. And right now also in SCO, we did that. We did the same thing. We highlighted what is the need to deal with state-sponsored terrorism. And as a result, as a positive result of that only, we could see that the Pahalgam terror attack, they were condemned. They were formally condemned in the joint declaration of SCO. So in SCO also we brought this up, and we said that we have zero tolerance for terrorism. We oppose the double standards of countries, and we demand accountability for the sponsors of cross-border terrorism or the state-sponsored terrorism. We demand accountability for that, and strengthen SCO's RATS mechanism and hold joint anti-terror exercises. So India again highlighted that there is a need for the world to come together and act in the direction of counter-terrorism by holding joint counter-terrorism exercises also. Now, why does SCO matter? SCO matters because of the 60-40 thing that I already told you, that 60% of the geographical landmass is covered or represented in SCO, and 40% of the world's population is also represented by SCO. So any decision that is taken in SCO, it becomes very important. In fact, SCO acts as a counter to balance the Western diplomacy or the Western dominance that we have in the form of NATO and other organizations. So SCO also acts as a counter to that. That is why SCO matters. So all these decisions that we take on SCO also, they matter. So what is India's way forward? India needs to keep on leveraging these SCO forums to improve our market access, reduce trade deficits, and expand people-to-people links for resilience against third country shocks. In fact, in the case of India and China also, there were talks of resuming flight connectivity between both the nations as soon as possible to strengthen the people-to-people ties between both the countries and to ease our market access, reduce our trade tariffs, because SCO countries, they have a huge market, they have a huge population and they have a huge market. So we can tap onto that market by leveraging these organizations. Next, border and stability diplomacy is also very important between these countries, especially the border disputes that we keep on seeing with China. So dealing with that is also very important. So we are already moving in the correct direction, that we need to have proper diplomatic ties and proper diplomatic talks with these countries so that border diplomacy can also be taken care of. So that was all for today's video. Now let us practice a question for prelims. Which of the following best reflects India's position on terrorism within the SCO? A. Terrorism is a bilateral matter between individual states. B. Double standards are acceptable if national interests demand. C. Sponsors of cross-border terrorism must be held accountable. Strengthen RATS. D. Counter-terrorism is outside the SCO's mandate. Select the correct answer. Please provide your answers in the comment section and we will meet in the next video.